Hi, hello. I don't know why I'm holding my mouse. uh, I don't know why I was holding that. Anyway, hi. Welcome back to Don't Quote Me. It's probably nothing. The podcast where I notice something feels weird, say it out loud, and then immediately regret how deep I'm about to go. If you're listening to this on wherever you listen to your podcasts, what am I trying to say? Oh, yeah. There's a chance that you might be watching this on like YouTube or something, or TikTok, somewhere out there, right? I had to hide my picture from the screen thing, like behind my all my notes and whatnot, because I didn't want to see myself. I have no makeup on and I'm in my PJs, and there's a pile of laundry behind me right there. Right there. I'm going to try and put a green screen behind all this, but I don't think it is going to happen, my friends. But anyway, so today is supposed to be a True Crime Tuesday because it's Tuesday tomorrow. But I don't know. I didn't want to relax, So we're not doing a True Crime Tuesday. Today, we are going to talk about Antarctica. And like before you tune out thinking like, oh great, ice and penguins, please know that this is not penguins. Also, if you're watching this, I'm looking at the camera right now, but if you're watching this and I'm like looking all over the place, is because like when I do my podcasts, I may or may not picture that like I'm on a stage talking to a whole bunch of people, so I'm looking out into the crowd. making eye contact with the faces. Anyway, but yes, it's not a place with, it is a place with penguins, but we're not going to talk about penguins today. This is like the only continent on Earth that no one owns and that you can't freely visit, and is governed by international treaties that has like heavy military interest, and that everyone swears is just ice, which is always reassuring, sure, I guess. I'm not saying Antarctica is hiding like aliens, or that there's like secret bases under the ice, or that there's like an ancient civilization frozen in time, which is exactly what I'm saying. And also, if there was something there, this is exactly how it would look, for sure. If you just heard that squeak, I have wreaths hanging on my window, and they're squeaky when the wind blows. Also, sorry for my face. I think I said I don't have any makeup on, but yeah, this is... You're welcome. I don't even know where I left off. This is crazy. This is a crazy episode already. And we're only 3 minutes in. Sometimes I guess it gets crazy before 3 minutes, sure. Maybe. But anyway, let's talk about stuff. Maybe on the video I'll be able to like be like, ding, and a little picture will pop up. Right? But anyway, okay, back to this podcast. I looked at the camera. I'm going to say that every time I look at the camera. Oh, that sucks. Also, if you're new here, I'm Hi. Oh, I'm Kelli. Did I say my name is Kelli? Yet, my name is Kelli. That's me. Okay. So let's start with Operation High Jump, because like this is where Antarctica stops feeling like science project-y and starts feeling like a national security issue, right? So Operation High Jump took place in 1946 to 1947, immediately after like World War II, and it was one of the largest military expeditions ever sent to Antarctica. There was like no explorers or researchers like the United States Navy. So this operation involved 13 ships, an aircraft carrier, submarines, over 4,000 military personnel, dozens of aircraft, and like massive logistical support, right? Oh, sorry, I keep saying right. That's annoying. But anyway, they were all sent to one of the most remote, hostile environments on Earth. And the official reason was training and research. Did you guys ever see Bring It On when the girl, when she goes like this to do the little air quotes? Oh, that really, ugh. What's it? Knocks my knuckles. What is that saying? I might have just made that up, actually. uh, I'm gonna say that from now on. You know what really knocks my knuckles? I don't know why I said that or where it even came from. Anyway, it's for training and research. And they said that the goal was to test equipment in extreme cold, train personnel for polar conditions, establish a U.S. presence, and conduct scientific exploration. I had to fix my pajama shirt keeps going crooked. But anyway, all of this sounds reasonable until you realize that the scale of this operation was completely disproportionate, because it wasn't like a small test mission. It was like a full-scale military deployment. They had like war level resources immediately after a global war, at a time when budgets, manpower, and attention were supposedly like shifting away from conflict. I keep bumping this and it keeps making noises, I think. Also, did I ever tell you that there's nothing coming out of here? Or here? Oh, I am so funny. I forget where I left off. I'm trying to read to see what I just talked about. Oh, okay. I found it. So, naturally, people asked, why Antarctica? Why Antarctica? And here's where things get like interesting. So the operation was led by Admiral Richard E. Byrd, one of the most like respected naval officers and explorers of the time. Not a conspiracy guy or like a fringe guy, you know? Anyway, after the mission, which was originally planned to last 6 months, it was abruptly ended early. So officially it was due to weather conditions. Unofficially, there were equipment losses, aircraft crashes, and reported casualties, though details were never fully clarified. So shortly after returning, Admiral Byrd gave an interview where he made a statement that like raised eyebrows then and like literally still does now. So he warned that the United States could face attacks from enemies that could travel from pole to pole at incredible speeds, which is like a very oddly specific thing to say, especially in like 1947. Is my eyebrow raised? I can feel it. Oh, wrong one. This eyebrow felt raised, but like this one looked raised. Huh. Anyway, especially in 1947, especially about Antarctica, and especially when no other nation was publicly known to possess aircraft capable of that kind of movement. And that's when theories like exploded. Because if this mission was just about like cold weather training, then what's the urgency? And why the secrecy? And why end it early, you know? Some believe Operation High Jump encountered advanced technology, a hostile force, something unexpected under the ice, or evidence of installations that weren't supposed to be there. Others believed it was about securing territory, not land, but access, because Antarctica isn't just ice. It's like strategically positioned. It sits at the bottom of the world and it gives control over polar flight paths and global movement, which makes it less about penguins and more about power. And like, here's the part that really matters though. After Operation High Jump, interest in Antarctica did not decrease. It actually increased. And more nations showed up, more treaties were signed, more rules were put in place. And eventually the entire continent became something very rare in human history. Because no one owns Antarctica. But like everyone agrees that it needs to be controlled. Which is not how humans behave unless there's a reason. So the question isn't like, did Operation High Jump find something? The real question is, what made Antarctica important enough to justify a military operation of that scale in the first place? Because like history does not spend that much money on nothing. Also, I talk with my hands and I'm like hiding them under my desk so that I don't talk with my hands the whole time, because they will be all up in your face. But anyway, now that we've established that the U.S. Navy didn't send an entire floating city to Antarctica just for like, I don't know, vibes or something, let's talk about the Antarctica Treaty. because this is where things stop being like subtle, you know. So the Antarctic Treaty was signed in 1959 and went into effect in 1961. And on paper, it sounds lovely, just wonderful. But the treaty states that Antarctica is to be used only for peaceful purposes. Like no military activity, no weapons testing, no nuclear explosions, no radioactive waste disposal, science only, peace only, penguins only. And originally, 12 countries signed it, including the United States, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, France, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Argentina, and Chile. Which is important because some of these countries like did not agree on anything else at the time. So they were like Cold War enemies, political rivals, global tensions like everywhere. But Antarctica was where everyone said like, yeah, let's all agree on this. We all agree on Antarctica. Which that alone is interesting because when does any country agree ever with like everyone, you know? But here's what the treaty actually does. So first, no country is allowed to claim Antarctica as sovereign territory. Any existing claims were essentially frozen. Second, military activity is banned. So no bases, no weapons, none of that. Third, access is controlled. You can't just like go explore freely. You need permits, approval, and you're monitored if they let you in. Obviously, because they can't monitor you if you're not in. Fourth, inspections are allowed, but only by treaty members, not by the public. So Antarctica becomes this weird global space where no one owns it, everyone governs it, and regular people are absolutely not invited to the meeting. Which is not how like humans usually handle land, you know? Like we fight over it, and we claim it, and exploit it. We exploit it. I'm sorry for my weird. Anyway, supporters of the treaty say that like it's about environmental protection, it's about science, it's about preventing conflict. And sure, all of that is like technically true. But then like you look closer and despite the ban on military activity, military personnel and equipment are still allowed as long as they're labeled as like support for scientific research. So, yeah, military presence is banned except when it isn't. So multiple countries operate permanent research stations across the continent, many of which are year-round, heavily fortified, and strategically placed. And some are located near magnetic anomalies, ice-free regions, subglacial lakes, mountain ranges buried under ice. And while resource extraction is currently banned, the treaty doesn't say resources don't exist. In fact, whatever, you know, I'm not left-handed. This is my left hand. I'm not left-handed, so I can't do it. I can do it with, I'm still holding my mouse. Anyway, so geological surveys have already identified oil, natural gas, coal, and rare minerals all under the ice, which means Antarctica isn't like worthless. Not that like any place is worthless in the earth, on the earth, you know. They're all pretty great, and they're all great. Anyway, I can show you my cat. Actually, I can take these off because they're not plugged into anything. Hold on, my voice may have changed though. Hold on, I can show you my cat. This is Tolkien. He's a sweet little peanut. He's a sweet boy. Say hi. Say hi. He was sleeping. And he looked so cute. He looked so cute. I just had to wake him up and love him. Anyway, what was I talking about? So Operation High Jump ends in 1947, and Antarctica suddenly becomes very important. Within a decade, the world's major powers rush to lock it down permanently. And it's fast and coordinated and global. And it results in a continent that is heavily monitored, heavily restricted, politically neutral, military sensitive, like all at once. So the treaty doesn't feel like, oh, we don't have conflict here. It's more like, oh, we don't want competition here. Because when everyone, I'm sorry, when I shake my head, my double chin jiggles. My bad. It'll be gone eventually. Maybe. I don't know. I love food. I mean, you guys know this. I also love mozzarella sticks. And I have been literally craving Chili's mozzarella sticks for 3.5 weeks. And if I don't get it by the end of the week, something bad's going to happen. I think not anything bad to anyone. Something bad like I might raise my voice a little higher and yell that I need mozzarella sticks from Chili's ASAP. That is what's going to happen. But anyway, when everyone agrees not to touch something, it usually means that like it matters a lot. Antarctica isn't just ice. It's ancient for one, and it's unexplored for two, and it's hiding an entire landscape beneath miles of like frozen surface. So I want to see it. What's underneath? So the Antarctica Treaty makes sure that whatever is there stays there, but under international supervision indefinitely. I don't even know if anyone can take it away. But if there's nothing special about Antarctica, like they like to say, why does the entire planet treat it like it's like a locked room that we're not allowed to open, you know? Because like when you tell someone, oh, don't look in there, you can't look in there, you're gonna want to know what's inside, right? Like, what's in there? What you got? What you got in there? Did I tell you guys I was hungry? I'm hungry. I haven't a lick of food all day. I had some coffee. Still have my coffee. Forgot about it. It's probably cold. Yes, it is. Does anybody else have like half drank coffee mugs around their house everywhere? I can never seem to finish like a full cup of coffee. And when I do, I feel like it's within 30 seconds because I chugged the entire thing. But anyway, let's talk about the part people don't picture when they hear Antarctica, because it's not just like a big frozen slab like I always thought. I literally thought it was like, why are they naming this ice? That's what I thought. But underneath the ice, and like miles of ice, is an entire like hidden world. It has mountain ranges and deep valleys, massive lakes, rivers, heat sources, and terrain older than like recorded human history. And it's a continent, obviously. We learned that in grade school, right? They taught that in grade school. I vaguely remember writing Antarctica at the bottom of the world map in 5th grade. So, check that off of something I kind of know. Anyway, so the ice sheet covering is like on average over a mile thick, and in some places it's more than 2 miles thick, which means everything underneath has been sealed off for millions of years, and scientists didn't even realize how complex it was until down there like recently, when they went down there recently. So there are entire mountain ranges like what I mentioned earlier. And there is also, including one called, I'm going to mess this up, Gamburtsev, maybe? Gamburtsev? I will spell it for you. It's Gamburtsev. Gamburtsev. Anyway, those mountains. And they're comparable in size to the Alps, which is like, that's wild that there is a Alps-sized mountain range under the ice that has like, there's no erosion or weathering. It's like perfectly preserved. I stuttered a little bit when I said perfectly. There was a lot of P's in that sentence. But like mountains like that don't just happen. It's not like, boom, you're a mountain today. You know what I mean? Like they were there the whole time. Kind of. They take time, you know. So they form through tectonic activity, meaning Antarctica had a long, complex geological history before it froze over. And then also, how is there like liquid water underneath all of the ice, you know? I mean, I know sometimes when water freezes, I'm just going to answer my question, I guess. Well, like when water freezes, you know, and it's frozen. And then underneath is water because it doesn't freeze all the way. So that is how you get water underneath ice. Thank you, Kelly. Anyway, So scientists have identified hundreds of liquid water lakes trapped beneath the ice, and the most famous is Lake Vostok, and it's a lake buried under nearly 2.5 miles of ice, and is roughly the size of Lake Ontario, and it has been sealed off from the surface for potentially 15 million years, which raises a very important question. Why is there water underneath all the ice? You know, because I asked it earlier. Why? Huh? Why? Anyway, so the answer is heat. There are geothermal heat sources beneath Antarctica, meaning parts of the continent are warm enough from below to keep water from freezing. So Antarctica isn't just cold, it's active. Like, I mean, obviously it would be active. It's on the earth. That's like saying America's active, but like, what's a country? Another country isn't, you know. I didn't want to say just another country and hurt their feelings, so I didn't say one. I did not. But anyway, so satellite data has revealed that there's like hot spots beneath the ice, and hot spots are areas that are warmer than expected. Times my husband is a hot spot when he does nice things because he's warmer than his cold days, you know, when he's like, no, we're not going to Disney, you know? Sometimes ridiculous. Anyway, so some are explained by geothermal activity and tectonic movement, but others like don't line up neatly, you know? And when heat and water and pressure exist together for long periods of time, you get environments that can support life, which scientists openly acknowledge. So like under the ice, you don't just have rock and water, you have habitable environments that humans never accessed. And this matters because once you understand what's under the ice, Antarctica stops being like empty, you know? So like when people say, oh, there's nothing to see here, what they really mean is like, oh, we haven't looked, but we're not letting you look either. But like ice itself does not need this much protection. So what's under there? What is under there might need protection. So let's talk about ancient maps, specifically maps that appeared to show Antarctica before it was covered in ice. And it's not like just one map either, it's several. So let's start with the most famous one. I'm going to mess this name up, just warning you in advance. So in 1513, an Ottoman admiral and cartographer named Piri Reis, I feel like it's maybe Reese. I think it's Reese. Piri Reis it is. Anyway, he created a world map. And this map wasn't discovered until 1929 when it was found in a Turkish palace. But here's the problem. So the map shows parts of South America, parts of Africa, and then like a southern landmass that looks an awful lot like Antarctica. Piri Reis it is. Anyway, he created a world map. And this map wasn't discovered until 1929 when it was found in a Turkish palace. But here's the problem. So the map shows parts of South America, parts of Africa, and then like a southern landmass that looks an awful lot like Antarctica, but not like modern Antarctica. This version appears to show coastlines and not ice. So some of the coastlines match areas that are now buried under like thousands of feet of ice and weren't officially mapped until the 20th century using radar and like satellite technology, which raises a small casual question. How did a man in 1513 like map land that modern science didn't like see until 400 years later? How does that happen? And it gets worse. So Piri Reis himself, Piri Reis, he wrote notes on the map explaining that he didn't invent it. He compiled it from much older source maps, but like maps that were already ancient in his time, which was probably really ancient. So the thing of it is, so my mother-in-law, when she like tells a story, she's always like, well, the thing is, and my daughter, when she was real little, used to like say that, but she used to go, the thing of it is, and it was just so cute when she was cute. I mean, she's cute now, but she can be a bitch sometimes, as we've established. Anyway, so the problem with this is that Antarctica was discovered in 1820, which means no one should have known its shape. there's the squeaky wreaths. No one should have known its coastline. No one should have known what was under the ice, except these maps suggest that someone did. And the Piri Reis map isn't alone either. There are several other historical maps, including those by Orance Fine and other early cartographers, that depict a southern continent with rivers, mountain ranges, I almost said mountain rangers, defined coastlines, and again, not ice covered. So these maps consistently show Antarctica as temperate, detailed, and mapped with surprising accuracy. And before anyone says like, oh, they guessed, like, no, they did not. The coastlines line up like far too well with what modern ice penetrating radar has even revealed. So you can't guess that accurately, my guy. There are only a few explanations about what this means, and I feel like all of them might be a little uncomfortable. Either Antarctica was mapped before it froze, someone had advanced surveying capabilities long before like modern civilization, and ancient source civilizations existed that history doesn't account for, or knowledge from a previous era was lost and later rediscovered. Because like Antarctica is believed to have been iced over for like millions of years. So like human civilization, according to like mainstream timelines, is nowhere near that old. So if Antarctica was like once ice free and inhabited or mapped, that completely messes with what we think we know about human history. It does. So let's connect the dots. If I had a board behind me, you ever see the from Always Sunny, when he is mapping his little stuff, you know, with the pictures and the red string and all that? That's, just pretend that's back here. It's right there, right here in this little box. I just traced out with my fingers. You ever see the from Always Sunny, when he is mapping his little stuff, you know, with the pictures and the red string and all that? That's, just pretend that's back here. It's right there, right here in this little box. I just traced out with my fingers. But we have military interest, global treaties, restricted access, advanced monitoring, heat and liquid water beneath the ice. It's so weird saying liquid water because water is liquid, but like, you get what I'm trying to say, liquid water. But then there's also ancient maps that imply that Antarctica wasn't always frozen, and that is not a coincidence, my friends. Sorry, I'm not used to like looking at the camera. I'm used to like looking at my microphone for when there's no video, you know? I face this way. I just rearranged everything in here, so it's like kind of turned. Like my mic used to come in from this way, and now it comes in from this way. And I kind of like it because I feel like it's not all up in my face, you know? But where did I leave off? Because I this is good. This next part's good. Let's see if I can do it. Let's see if I can do it with like, I don't know. I was going to do a voice, but I don't think so. But it's not a coincidence. It is like a sealed archive, a place that, because it's frozen, can hold evidence of a forgotten civilization and advanced ancient knowledge, or like a version of human history that doesn't fit neatly into textbooks, which I feel like textbooks have left out a lot. I think they did anyway. I just looked at myself in the video, and I don't think the video is happening. I'm deleting it ASAP. But anyway, after you take all of that, like that it could be a forgotten civilization and like have ancient knowledge, and like the version of like, you know, what I just said, the human history that doesn't fit in textbooks. But like once you understand that, the Antarctic Treaty stops feeling like protection and starts feeling like containment. So the question isn't like, are these maps fake? Now it's like, what would it mean if they weren't? Because if Antarctica was like once known, then someone, somewhere, knew more than we were told. And that knowledge is buried under the ice on purpose. But now that we've talked about military operations, global treaties, what's under the ice, and maps that like should absolutely not exist, let's talk about the thing people always try to whisper when Antarctica comes up. Say hi. Sorry, I had to stop the recording and everything. Somebody walked in. But anyway, so I think I just said the whole alien thing. Like, whoa, aliens. You know, UFOs and stuff like that, like, show up in Antarctica discussions way more than, like, feels accidental. And it's not like someone's like, oh, I saw a light once, you know? There's like a pattern. So, first, quick little science lesson. This falls under science, I think. Anyway, so both the North and South poles are magnetically important. So they mess with compasses, navigation systems, and instrumentation, which makes them difficult to monitor, difficult to track, and perfect places to hide activity. And interestingly, many UFO sightings globally involve objects either entering or exiting oceans, appearing near polar regions, and moving at extreme speeds with like no visible propulsion. So like Antarctica is not random, it is strategic. Over the years, like pilots flying near polar routes have reported objects pacing aircraft, whatever the fuck that means. Maybe like objects keeping up with aircraft, maybe is what they were saying. Maybe that's what that means. Lights rising from ice or the ocean, craft making sudden vertical movements, and like radar contacts that appear and vanish. And like the whole like vertical movement thing, that's like a common thing among like people who tell their stories about like stuff that they've seen, you know, UFOs and whatnot. How like they'll be there 1 minute and then just like skirt somewhere else real quick. Anyway, but like the people who have like observed this are trained observers who know the difference between atmospheric effects, equipment glitches, and something that does not behave like human technology. Some reports specifically describe objects entering ice or water, not crashing, not landing, like entering. Which is a weird thing to say if you don't mean it, you know? But here is where Antarctica gets fully unhinged. So one of the most persistent theories is that UFOs are not coming from space. They're coming from under the earth, or at least from places that like we don't access. So Antarctica, with like miles thick ice, hidden terrain, liquid water, geothermal heat, restricted access, would be an ideal location, a long-term base, an observation post, or something that predates modern humans entirely, which suddenly makes like ancient maps, military presence, and treaties feel connected. They feel connected. And another thing that fuels this conversation is certain satellite images of Antarctica. They show blurred regions, resolution drop-offs, inconsistent image quality. Like, yeah, snow and ice are reflective, but the inconsistency is like what raises eyebrows. So some areas are crystal clear and others are conveniently fuzzy. That's what my legs are like right now. Conveniently fuzzy. I don't know why I shared that with you. But, you're welcome. That was my Chris Munch, you're welcome thing. He's so funny. But anyway, why, like, if it's just ice, why blur anything at all? When you go in, like, on Google Earth or something like that, sometimes, I'm going to sound like the biggest loser ever. So sometimes, when I'm really missing Disney, I will go on, like, Google Earth, and I'll find my way from my house to Disney World, and I'll look around at everything. And parts of Disney are blurred, which makes me wonder what you got in there. But it's I know it's probably like, I don't know, maybe it could be like a new land that they haven't opened up yet or something like that, you know. That's what I'm going to tell myself anyway. That's what they're hiding under there. But anyway, parts of Antarctica are also blurred, which is why I said that. The whole like, sorry, I was yawning. The whole like UFO theories like stick to Antarctica because it's inaccessible, it's controlled, it's unexplored, and it already has a long history of secrecy. So every unexplained sighting there doesn't get investigated publicly. It gets buried. And when multiple governments all quietly agree not to talk about something, that does not calm anyone's curiosity. It amplifies it. Now, not everyone believes that these are aliens in like the Hollywood sense. Some theories suggest that it's like an ancient non-human intelligence, interdimensional entities, a civilization that existed before recorded history, or technology left behind and monitored ever since, which would explain why Antarctica feels like a vault instead of like a destination, you know. I mean, it can't be a destination because we're not allowed to visit. But anyway, if something is under the ice and has been there for a very long time, you don't announce it. You control it, and you restrict access, and you sign treaties, and you make sure no one digs too deep down that hole. But anyway, so like when people ask like why does Antarctica keep coming up in like UFO lore, the answer I think is pretty simple, because Antarctica checks every single box of a place where something could exist and like never be challenged. But yeah, before I end this, let's zoom out. Zoom out. I'm still holding my mouse in my hand. Zoom out. I have not let go of this thing for 48 minutes. Anyway, so like we're not talking about like one weird thing with Antarctica. We're talking about like layers. So it's like a massive military operation sent to Antarctica immediately after World War II and then like ended early because why, right? And then a global treaty signed by rival nations agreeing no one gets to own or freely access an entire continent. Miles of ice covering up mountains and lakes and heat sources and unexplored terrain and ancient maps that appear to show like Antarctica before the ice, and persistent reports of like unexplained objects near the poles entering ice and water like it's nothing. And each one of those things on its own like could be explained away, you know, like oh yeah, there's a reason for that. But all of them together is not random, because like humans don't coordinate like this unless there's a reason. Like we don't agree globally on stuff, you know, and like we don't leave land untouched. How that leave the land alone? What? You know what? That actually just reminded me of something. So I think it was the way I said land alone. Okay, so I'm a little embarrassed to tell this story. It's kind of like the whole Luke Combs lyrics story because it has to do with a country song. So there was some like country song. They sang the lyrics and they were saying Dixieland Delight. I guess it's like an ice cream either brand or like an ice cream place, kind of like how like I don't know, like an ice cream place like Richmond's or like Rita's or something, you know. And anyway, I don't know why I said that. That's what I think it might be. But anyway, so I was listening to this one song and the guy said with her Dixieland a lot. And I was like, WTF is a Dixieland a lot? And I Googled it after, of course, singing Dixieland a lot for a year and a half. And then I found out it was Dixieland Delight. And I was like, oh, I'm dumb. It's just the way he talks. He's saying delight, but it's a Southern accent. And then I was like, you know what? That is a pretty good Southern accent because now I'll sound Southern for a second. So pretend I'm saying Dixieland Delight, but I'm like Dixieland a lot. And that was my Southern accent. But yeah, that's my brain. Mm-hmm. I don't even remember why I was telling you that. Why is Antarctica treated differently than every other place on Earth? And why was it locked down so quickly and so thoroughly? And why does history, science, and secrecy all converge there? And why does the conversation always end the same way? With like nothing. That's nothing. Because I think like if Antarctica truly was like just ice like they told us it was, no one would care this much, I don't think. And like if there was nothing there, there would be no reason to make sure that we never looked at it too closely. Yeah. That's what I think. I mean, like why are we just not allowed to find out? And that's where I'm going to leave you before I spiral any further. I did not bring out my tinfoil hat. I can't believe this. How could I forget? Especially when I mentioned the whole aliens and UFO thing. Oh, slipped my mind. I will have it for the next one. Maybe. I think. Maybe. Mm-hmm. Anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, or it made you be like, yeah, you're a weirdo, like maybe even once, please do me a favor and follow the show and rate it and leave a review on Spotify or wherever you were listening, because it tells the world that, hey, you like this thing, and then it'll tell other people about it, and then maybe other people will like this weird thing too. Because it helps more than you think, and it tells the algorithm that I'm just not screaming into the void, or not just screaming into the void, I should say. Shout out to Nighthawk Radio. Go check them out, show them some love, and support independent creators who keep things strange and interesting, because they got some really cool shows on there. They're on YouTube, most of them. I think probably all of them, maybe. But there's some pretty cool ones out there, and I think you should go check it out. And the song of the week this week is Tremble by The Last Second Save, because yes, I only did one episode last week. And no, I'm not changing it because it still slaps. And if my kids hear that, they're going to be like, we're disowning you, because don't ever say that again. I'll be back next time with more chaos, more questions, and probably like another topic that makes people uncomfortable at dinner, maybe. But until then, stay weird, stay curious, go be kind to someone for no reason, and go be amazing.